Sarah drove the motorcycle down the hill towards the worker village. Looking past Kelly, she saw the Jeep parked at the store, not far from the gas pumps. She braked to a stop, and they all climbed off in the moonlight. Kelly opened the door to the store and helped Malcolm inside. Sarah rolled the motorcycle into the store and closed the door.
Doc?
We're over here with Arby. By the moonlight filtering in through the windows, she could see the store looked very much like an abandoned roadside convention stand. There was a glass walled refrigerator of soft drinks, the cans obscured by mold in the glass. A wire rack nearby held candy bars and sneakers. The wrapper spilked green, crawling with larvae. In the adjacent magazine rack, the papers were curled, the headlights 5 years old. To one side were rows of basic supplies. Alongside this were a rag of clothing. T-shirts and shorts, socks, tennis rackets, bathing suits, and a few souvenirs, keychains, ashtrays, and drinking glasses. In the center of the room was a little island with a computer cash register, a microwave, and a coffee machine. The microwave door hung wide. Some animal had made a nest inside. The coffee machine was cracked and laced with cobwebs. What a mess.
Looks fine to me.
The windows were all barred. The walls seemed solid enough. The canned goods would still be edible. She saw the sign that said restrooms, so maybe there was pummeling too. They should be safe here, at least for a while.
I brought the first aid kit. How is he?
Pretty bruised, Thorne said. Some gashes, but nothing broken. Head looks bad. Everything hurts, Arby said. Even my mouth.
Somebody see if there's a light. Let me look, Arby. Okay, you're missing a couple of teeth, that's why. But that can be fixed. The cut on your head isn't so bad. How long until a helicopter comes?
Thorne looked at his watch. 2 hours.
And where does it land?
The pad is several miles from here.
Okay, so we have 2 hours to get to the pad. How can we do that? The car's out of gas. Don't worry. We'll figure something out. It's going to be fine. You always say that, because it's always true. Okay, Arby, I need you to help now. I'm going to sit you up and get your shirt off.
Thorne moved to one side with Levine. Levine's eyes were wild. His body is moving in a twitching way. The drive in the Jeep seems to have finished him off. What is she talking about? We're trapped here. Trapped! We can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. I'm telling you, we're all gonna die. Keep it down, Thorne said, grabbing his arm, leaning close. Don't upset the kids. What difference does it make? They're going to find out sooner. Ow! Take it easy! You're too old to act like an asshole. Now pull yourself together, Richard. Are you listening to me, Richard? Levine nodded. Good. Now, Richard, I'm going outside to see if the pumps work. They can't possibly work, not after 5 years. I'm telling you, it's a waste of... Richard, we have to check the pumps. There was a pause. The two men looked at each other. You mean you're going outside? Levine said. Yes. Levine frowned. Another pause.
Where are the lights? Guys?
Just a minute, Thorne said to her. He leaned close to Levine. Okay? Okay, Levine said, taking a breath. Thorne went to the front door, opening it, and stepped out into the darkness. Levine closed the door behind them. Thorne heard a click on the door lock. He immediately turned and rapped softly at the door. Levine opened it only a few inches and peered out.
For Christ's sake, don't lock it. But I just thought, don't lock the damn door. Okay, sorry. For Christ's sake.
He closed the door again and turns to face the night. Around him, the worker village was silent. He heard the only steady of drone of cicadas in the darkness. It seems almost too quiet, he thought. But perhaps it was just a construct from the snarling raptors. Thorne stood with his back to the door for a long time. Staring at the clearing, he saw nothing. Finally, he walked over to the Jeep, opened the side door, and fumbled in the dark for the radio. His hand touched it. It had slid under the passenger seat. He pulled it out and carried it back to the store and knocked the door again. It's not like here. Thorne handed him the radio, closed the door again. Again, he paused, watching. Around him, the compound was silent. The moon was full. The air was still. He moved forward and peered closely at the gas pumps. The handle of the nearest one was rotten and dripped with spiderweb. He pulled the nozzle up and flicked the latch. Nothing happened. He squeezed the nozzle handle. No liquid came out. There was no gas. They had to find gas or they'll never get to the helicopter. He frowned at the pumps, thinking. They were simple. The kind of very reliable pumps you find at a remote construction site. And that made sense, because after all, this was an island. This was an island. That meant everything came in by plane or boat. Most times, probably by boat. Small boats, where supplies were offloaded by hand. Which meant... He saw a thick black PVC pipe running at the angle just under the ground. He could see the direction the pipe was going, around the side of the store. Thorne followed it, moving cautiously in the moonlight. He paused for a moment to listen. Then he moved on. He came round to the side and saw just what he expected to see. 50-gallon metal drums ranged alongside the wall. There were 3 of them, connected by a serious black hose. That made sense. All the gasoline on the island would have come here by drums. He tapped the drum softly with a knuckle. They were hollow. He lifted one, hoping to hear a slump of liquid at the bottom. They needed only a gallon or 2. Nothing. The drums were empty. But surely, there must be more than 3 drums. A lab this large would have had a half a dozen of supply vehicles, maybe more. Even if they're fuel efficient, they'll burn 30 or 40 gallons a week. To be safe, the company would have stored at least 2 months' supply, perhaps 6 months' supply. That meant 10 to 30 drums, and steel drums were heavy, so they probably stored them close by. Probably just a few yards. He turned slowly, looking. The moonlight was bright. He could see well. Beyond the store, there was an open space and a cluster of tall bushes that had overgrown the path leading to the tennis court. Above the bushes, there was a chain link fence with lengths of creepy vines. He could see only the dark roof to the right of the court. Nearer the store, there was a thick foliage, although he saw the gap. A path. He moved forward, leaving the store behind. Approaching the dark gap, there was a shed back at the foliage. The other door was closed. As he came closer, he saw the rusted metal sign with a flagged red letter. The letter was black in the moonlight. Precaución, no fumare, inflamable. He paused, listening. He heard the raptors snarling in the distance, but they seemed far away, back up on the hill. For some reason, they still had not approached the village. Thorne waited, heart pounding, staring forward at the dark entrance to the shed. At last, he decided it wasn't going to be any easy. They needed gas. Thorne moved forward. The path to the shed was wet from the night rain, but the shed was dry inside. His eyes adjusted. It was a small place, perhaps 12 by 12. In the dim light, he saw a dozen rusted drums standing on end, 3 or 4 more on their sides. Thorne touched them all quickly, one after another.
Empty. Every one empty.
Feeling defeated, Thorne moved back towards the entrance to the shed. He paused for a moment, staring out at the moonlight night. Inside the store, Levine moved from window to window trying to follow Thorne's progress. His body was jumpy with tension. What was Thorne doing? He had gone so far from the store. It was very unwise. Levine kept glancing at the front door, wishing he could lock it. He felt so unsafe with the door unlocked. Now Thorne had gone off into the bushes, disappearing entirely from the view. He had been gone a long time, at least a minute or 2. Levine stared out the window, bit his lip. He heard the distant snores of raptors and realized that they had remained up into the entrance of the laboratory. They haven't followed the vehicle down even now. Why not, he wondered. The question was welcoming in his mind. Why had the raptors stayed up in the laboratory? All kinds of explanations occurred to him. The raptors had an atavistic fear of their birthplace. They remembered their cages and didn't want to be captured again. But he suspected the most likely explanation was also the simplest. That the area around the laboratory was some other animal's territory. It was scent marked and demarked and defended, and the raptors were reluctant to enter. Even the tyrannosaur he remembered now had gone through the territory quickly without stopping. But whose territory? Levine stared out of the window impatiently as he waited.
What about the lights?
Sarah called from across the room.
I need light here.
In a minute, Levine said. At the entrance of the shed, Thorne stood silently, listening. He heard soft snorting exhalation like a quiet horse. A large animal, waiting. The sound was coming from somewhere to his right. Thorne looked over slowly. He saw nothing at all. Moonlight shone brightly over the worker village. He saw the store, the gas pump, the dark shape of the Jeep. Looking to his right, he saw an open space and clumps of residential bushes, the tennis court beyond. Nothing else. He stared, listening hard. The soft snorting continued, hardly louder than a faint breeze. There was no breeze. The trees and the bushes were not moving. Or were they? Thorne had the sense that something was wrong. Something right before his eyes. Something that he could see but couldn't see. With the effort of staring, he began to think his eyes were playing tricks on him. He thought he detected a slight movement in the bushes to the right. A pattern of leaves seems to shift in the moonlight. Shift and stabilized again. But he wasn't sure. Thorne stared forward, straining. And as he looked, he began to think that it wasn't the bushes that caught his eyes, but rather the chain link fence. For most of its length, the fence was overgrown with irregular tangle of vines. But in a few places, regular diamond patterns of links were visible. And there was something strange about that pattern. The fence seems to be moving, rippling. Maybe it is moving. Maybe there's an animal inside the fence, pushing against it, making it move. But that didn't seem quite right. It was something else. Suddenly, lights came on inside the store. They shone through the barred windows, casting a geometric pattern of dark shadows across the open clearing and onto the bushes by the tennis court. And for just a moment, Thorne saw that the bushes beside the tennis court were oddly shaped, and that they were actually two dinosaurs, 7 feet tall, standing side by side, staring right at him. Their bodies seemed to be covered in a patchwork patterns of light and dark that made them blend in perfectly with the leaves behind them, and even with the fence of the tennis court. Thorne was confused. Their concealment had been too perfect, until the lights from the store windows had shone out and caught them in a sudden bright glare. Thorne watched, holding his breath, and then he realized that the leaf light and dark patterns went only part way up their bodies, to mid-thorax. Above that, the animals had a kind of diamond-shaped crisscross patterns that matched his defense. And as Thorne stared, the complex pattern in their bodies faded. The animals turned into Chucky White, and then a series of vertical striped shadows began to appear, which exactly matches the shadows cast by the windows. And before his eyes, the two dinosaurs disappeared from view again. Squinted, with concentrated effort, he could just barely distinguish the outlines of their bodies. He would never be able to see them at all had he had not already known they were there. They were chameleons, but with a power of mimicry unlike any chameleon Thorne had ever seen. Slowly, he backed away into the shed, moving deeper into darkness. "My God!" Levine exclaimed, staring out the window.
Sorry, but I had to turn on the lights. That boy needs help. I can't do it in the dark.
Levine did not answer her. He was staring out the window, trying to comprehend what he had seen. He now realized what he had glimpsed the day Diego was killed. That brief momentary sense that something was wrong. Levine now knew what it was, but it was quite beyond anything that was known among terrestrial animals and...
What is it? Is it Thorne?
"Look," Levine said.
At the bushes? What? What am I supposed to?
"Look!"
I'm sorry.
"Start at the bottom of the bushes," Levine told her. "Then let your eye move up very slowly. Just look, and you'll see the outline.
I'm sorry.
Then turn out the lights again and you'll see." She turned the lights out, and for a moment Levine saw the two animals in sharp relief, their bodies pale white with vertical stripes in the moonlight. Almost immediately, the pattern started to fade. Harding came back, pushing alongside him, and this time she saw the animals instantly, just as Levine knew she would.
No shit. There are two of them?
Yes, side by side.
And is the pattern fading?
Yes, it's fading. As they watched, the strip patterns of their skin was replaced by leafy patterns of the rhododendron behind them. Once again, the two dinosaurs blended into invisibility, but such complex patterning implied that the epidermal layers were arranged in a manner similar to the chromatophores of marine invertebrates.
What are they?
Chameleons have unparalleled skill, obviously, although I'm not sure one is entirely justified in referring to them as chameleons, since technically chameleons have only the ability...
What are they?
Actually, I say they're Carnotaurus sastrae, type specimens from Patagonia, 2 meters in height with distinctive heads. You notice the short bulldog snout and a pair of large horns above their eyes, almost like wings.
They're carnivores?
Yes, of course. They have the...
Where's Thorne?
He went into that clump of bushes to the right some time ago. I haven't seen him, but...
What do we do?
Do? Levine said. I'm not sure I follow you.
We have to do something. We have to help Thorne get back.
I don't know how. Those animals must weigh 500 pounds each, and there are 2 of them. I told them not to go out in the first place, but now...
Go turn the lights back on.
I prefer to...
Go turn the lights back on.
Levine got up irritably. He had been relishing his remarkable discovery, a truly unanticipated feature of dinosaurs. Although not, of course. Entirely without presented among relative vertebrates. And now this little muscle-bound female was barking orders at him. Levine was offended. After all, she wasn't much of a scientist. She was a naturalist, a field devoted of theory. One of those people who poked around in animal crap and imagined they were doing original research.
On!
He flicked the lights on and started to head back to the window.
Off!
Hastily, he went back and turned them off.
On!
He turned them on again. She got up from the window and crossed the room.
They didn't like that. It bothered them.
Well, there's probably a refractory period.
Yeah, I think so. Here, open these. I hope these still work.
What are you going to do? Levine said.
We.
Thorne stood in the darkness of the shed, staring out through the open doors. Somebody had been turning the lights on and off inside the store. Then for a while they remained on, but now suddenly they went off again. The area in front of the shed was lit only by moonlight. He heard movement, a soft rustling. He heard the breathing again. And then he saw the 2 dinosaurs walking upright with stiff tails. Their skin pattern seemed to shift as they walked, and it was difficult to follow them, but they were moving towards the shed. They arrived at the entrance, their bodies still hooded against the moonlight beyond, their outlines finally clear. They looked like small tyrannosaurs, except they had protrusions above their eyes. They had very small, stubby forelimbs. The carnivores stuck their squarish heads down and looked into the shed cautiously, snorting, sniffing, their tails swinging slowly behind them. They were really too big to come inside, and for a moment he hoped they would not. Then the first of them lowered his head, growled, and stepped through the entrance. Thorne held his breath. He was trying to think of what to do, but he couldn't think of anything at all. The animals were methodical. The first one moved aside so the second could enter as well. Suddenly, from alongside of the store, a half-dozen glaring lights shone out in bright beams. The lights moved, splashed on the dinosaurs' bodies. The beams began to move back and forth in slow, erratic patterns, like searchlights. The dinosaurs were clearly visible, and they didn't like it. They growled and tried to step away from the lights, but the beams moved continuously, searching them out, crisscrossing over their bodies. As the light passes over their torsos, the skin pales in response, reproducing the movements of the beams after the light had moved on. Their bodies streaked white, fading to dark, streaked white again. The light never stopped moving, except when they're shown into the faces of the dinosaurs. The big eyes blinked beneath the hooded wings. The animals twitched their heads and ducked away, as if annoyed by flies. The dinosaurs became agitated. Still, the lights moved relentlessly, swinging back and forth into the night. The pattern of movement was complex, confusing. The dinosaurs fell again and took a menacing step towards the lights. But it was half-hearted. They clearly didn't like being around these moving sources. After a moment, they shuffled off. The lights followed them, driving them away past the tennis court. Thorne moved forward.
Doc, better get out of there before they decide to come back.
Thorne moved quickly towards the lights. He found himself standing beside Levine and Harding. They were swinging fists full of flashlights back and forth. They all went back to the store. I was never so frightened in my entire life.
Richard, get a grip on yourself.
Going out there was insane, Levine said, wiping his forehead.
Actually, it was a slam dunk. You could see they had a refractory period for skin response. It's fast compared to, say, an octopus, but it's still there. My assumption was that those dinosaurs were all like animals that rely on camouflage. They're basically ambushers. They're not particularly fast or active. They stand motionless for hours in an unchanging environment, disappearing into the background, and they wait until some unsuspected meal comes along. But if they have to keep adjusting to new light conditions, they know they can't hide. They get anxious, and if they get anxious enough, they nearly just run away, which is what happened.
Levine turned and glared angrily at Thorne. This was all your fault. If you haven't gone out that way, just wandering off...
Richard, we need gas or we'll never get out of here. Don't you want to get out of here?
Well, there wasn't any gas in the shed anyway.
Hey everyone, look who's here.
Arby came forward leaning on Kelly. He had changed into clothing from the store, a pair of swimming trunks, and a t-shirt that says InGen Bioengineering Labs, and beneath, we make the future. Arby had a black eye, a swollen cheekbone, and a cut that Harding had bandaged in his forehead. His arms and legs were badly bruised, but he was walking, and he managed to cook a smile. How do you feel, son? You know what I want more than anything right now? What? Diet Coke, Arby said. Sarah bent over Malcolm, who was humming softly, staring upward. How's Arby?
He'll be okay.
Does he need any morphine? Malcolm asked.
No, I don't think so.
Good, Malcolm said. He stretched out his arm, rolling up the sleeve. Thorne cleaned the nest out of the microwave and heated up some canned beef steak. He found a package of paper plates decorated in Halloween motif, pumpkins and bats, and spoon for food on the plate. The two kids ate hungrily. He gave a plate to Sarah, then turned to Levine. What about you? Levine was staring out the window. No. Arby came over holding his plate. Is there any more? Sure, Thorne said. He gave him his own plate. Levine went over and sat with Malcolm. Well, at least we were right about one thing. This island was a true lost world. A pristine, untouched ecology. We were right from the beginning. Malcolm looked over and raised his head. Are you joking? What about all the dead apatosaurs? I've been thinking about it. The raptors did kill them, obviously. And then the raptors did what? Malcolm said. Drag them to their nest? Those animals weigh hundreds of tons, Richard. 100 raptors couldn't drag them. No. The carcasses must have been floated to the bend in the river, where they beached. The raptors made their nest at a source of a convenient food supply. Dead apatosaurs. Well, possibly, but why so many dead apatosaurs, Richard? Why do none of the animals attain adulthood? And why there's so many predators on the island? Well, we need more data, of course. No, we don't, Malcolm said. Didn't you go through the lab? We already know the answer. What is it? Levine said irritably. Prions, Malcolm said, closing his eyes. What's prions? Ian, what are prions? Go away, Malcolm said, waving his hand. Arby was curled up in the corner near sleep. Thorne pulled up a t-shirt and put it under the boy's head. Arby muttered something and smiled. A few moments, he began to snore. Thorne got up and went over to Sarah, who was standing by the window. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten above the trees, turning pale blue.
How much time now?
Thorne looked at his watch. Maybe an hour.
We've got to get gas. If we have gas, we can drive the jeep to the helicopter site.
But there's no gas, Thorne said.
There must be some, somewhere. You tried the pumps?
Yes, they're dry.
What about inside the lab?
I don't think so.
Where else? What about the trailer?
Thorne shook his head. It's just a passive tow trailer. The other unit was on auxiliary generator and some gas tanks. But it went over the cliff.
Maybe the tanks didn't rupture when it fell. We still have the motorcycle. Maybe I can go out there and...
Sarah.
It's worth a try.
Sarah. Heads up. We have visitors. In the pre-dawn light, the dinosaurs came out of the bushes and went directly towards the jeep. There were 6 of them, big brown duck bills 15 feet high and curving snouts. Maiasaurs, Levine said. I didn't know there were any here.
What are they doing?
The huge animals clustered around the Jeep and immediately began to tear it apart. I don't understand. They're hadrosaurs, herbivores. This aggressiveness is quite uncharacteristic. Uh-huh, Thorne said. As they watched, the Maiasaurs tipped the Jeep over. The vehicle crashed over on its side. One of the adults reared up and stood on the side panels. His huge feet crushed the vehicle inward. But when the Jeep fell over, 2 white Styrofoam cases tumbled out onto the ground. The Maiasaur seems to be focused on these cases. They nipped at the Styrofoam, tossing chunks of white around the ground. They moved hurriedly, in a kind of frenzy. Something to eat? Levine said. Some kind of dinosaur catnip? What? Then the top of one case tore away, and they saw a cracked egg inside. Protruding from the egg was a wrinkling bit of flesh. The Maiasaurs slowed. Their movements were now cautious, gentle. You're kidding, Levine said. On the ground, a tiny animal moved about. Its body was pale brown, almost white. It tried to stand, but flopped down at once. It was barely a foot long, with wrinkled folds of the flesh around its neck. In a moment, a second animal tumbled out beside it. Harding signed. Slowly, one of the Maiasaurs ducked its huge head down and gently scooped the baby in its broad bill. It kept its mouth open as it raised its head. The baby sat calmly on the adult's tongue, looking around with its tiny head as it rose high into the air. The second baby was picked up. The adults milled around for a moment, as if unsure whether there was more to do. And then, honking loudly, they all moved off, leaving behind a crumbling, shattered vehicle. I guess gas is no longer a problem.
I guess not.
Thorne stared at the wreckage of the Jeep, shaking his head. It looks like it's been put on a compactor. Just wasn't built for those sort of stresses. Levine snorted. Engineers in Detroit didn't expect a 5-ton animal to stand on it. You know, Thorne said, I would have liked to see our own car stood up under that. You mean because we beefed it up? Yes, Thorne said. We really built it to take fascinating stresses. Huge stresses. Ram it through the computer programs. Added those honeycomb panels, the whole...
Wait a minute. What are you talking about?
The other car, Thorne said.
The other car?
The car we brought. The Explorer.
Of course. There's another car. I completely forgot. The Explorer.
Well, it's history now, Thorne said. It shorted out last night, when I was coming back to the trailer. I ran it through a puddle and it shorted out.
So, maybe it's still...
No, Thorne said, shaking his head. A short like that'll blow the VR. It's an electric car. It's dead.
I'm surprised you don't have circuit breakers for that.
Well, we never used to put them in. Although on this latest version, he trailed off. He shook his head. I can't believe it.
The car has circuit breakers?
Yes, Eddie put them in last minute.
So the car might still work?
Yes, it probably would, if you reset the breakers.
Where is it?
I left it on that side road that runs from the Ridge Road down to the Hyde. But Sarah...
It's our only chance.
She pulled on her radio headset, adjusted the microphone to her cheek, and rolled the motorcycle to the door.
Call me. I'm going to go find us a car.
Levine watched her go. What do you figure her odds are? Thorne just shook his head.
Doc?
Thorne picked it up. Yes, Sarah.
I'm coming up the hill now. I see. There's 6 of them.
Raptors?
Yeah, there are, Listen, I'm going to try another path. I see a...
Sarah? You're breaking up.
sort of a game trail that here... I think I better...
Sarah, you're breaking up.
do now. So just... wish me luck.
Over the radio, they heard the hum of the bike. Then they heard another sound, which might have been an animal snarl. It might have been more static. Thorne bent forward, holding the radio close to his ear. Then, abruptly, the radio clicked and was silent. Sarah? Maybe she turned it off, Levine said. Thorne shook his head. Sarah? Sarah, are you there? They waited. Nothing. Hell, Thorne said. Time passed slowly. Levine stood by the window, staring out. Kelly was snoring in a corner. Arby lay next to Malcolm, fast asleep, and Malcolm was humming tunelessly. Thorne sat on the front of the center of the room, leaning back against the checkout counters. Every so often, he picked up the radio and tried to call Sarah, but there was never any answer. He tried all 6 channels. There was no answer on any of them. Eventually, he stopped trying.
Hate these damn things. Never work right. Ugh, can't figure out what things damn.
Thorne grabbed the radio. Sarah! Sarah!
Finally. Where the hell have you been, Doc?
Are you alright?
Of course, I'm alright.
There's something wrong with your radio. You're breaking up.
Yeah? What should I do?
Try screwing down the corner in your battery pack. It's probably loose.
No, I mean, what should I do about the car?
What?
I'm at the car, Doc. I'm there. What should I do?
Levine glanced at his watch. 20 minutes until the helicopter arrives. You know, she just might make it. Dodgson awoke, aching and stiff, on the floor of the concrete utility shed. He got to his feet and looked out the window. He saw a streak of red in the pale blue sky. He opened the door to the utility shed and went outside. He was very thirsty, and his body was sore. He started walking between the canopies of trees. The jungle around him was silent in the early morning. More than anything, he needed water. Somewhere off to his left, he heard a soft gurgle of the stream. He headed towards it. Through the trees, he could see the sky growing lighter. He knew that Malcolm and his party were still here. They must have some plan to get off the island. If they could get off, he could too. He came over a low rise and looked down at a gooey and flowing stream. It looked clear. He hurried down towards it, wondering if it was polluted. He decided he didn't care. Fuck! He got to his feet and looked back. Then he saw it wasn't a vine he had tripped over. It was a strap of a green backpack. Dodgson tugged at the strap, and the whole backpack slid out of the foliage. The pack had been torn apart, and it was crucial with dry blood. As he pulled it, the contents clattered out among the ferns. Flies were buzzing everywhere. But he saw a camera, a metal case for food, and a plastic water bottle. He searched quickly through the surrounding ferns, but he didn't find much less, except some soggy candy bars. Dodgson drank the water. He then realized he was very hungry. He popped open the metal case, hoping for some decent food. But the case didn't contain food. It was filled with foam packing, and in the center of the packing was a radio. He flicked it on. The battery light glowed strongly. He flicked from one channel to another, hearing static. Sarah, this is Thorne. Sarah.
Doc, did you hear me? I said I'm at the car.
Dodgson listened and smiled. So there was a car. Okay, Sarah, listen carefully. Get in the car and do exactly what I tell you.
Okay, fine. But tell me first, is Levine there?
He's here.
Ask him if there's any danger from a green dinosaur that's about 6 feet tall and has a domed forehead.
Levine nodded. Tell her yes. They're called Pachycephalosaurs. He says yes. They're Pachycephalo something. And you should be careful. Why?
Because there's about 15 of them, all around the car.
The explorer was sitting in the middle of the shady section of the road with overhanging trees above. The car had stopped just beyond the depression, where there had no doubt been a large puddle the night before. Now the puddle had become a mud hole, thanks to a dozen or so animals that sat in it, splashed in it, drank from it, and rolled at its edge. These were the green dome-headed dinosaurs that she has been watching for the last few minutes, trying to decide what to do. Because not only they were near the mud hole, they were also located in front of the car, and around the sides of the car. She had watched the Pachycephalosaurs with uneasiness. Harding had spent a lot of time on the ground with wild animals, but usually animals she knew well. From long experience, she knew how closely she could approach and under what circumstances. If this was a herd of wildebeest, she could walk right in without hesitation. If it were a herd of American buffalo, she would be cautious, but she'd still go in. And if it was a herd of African buffalo, she wouldn't go anywhere near them.
How much time left?
20 minutes.
Then I better get in there. Any ideas?
Levine said nobody knows anything about these animals, Sarah.
Great.
Levine says a complete skeleton had never been recovered, so nobody has ever guessed about their behavior, except that they're probably aggressive. She was looking at the situation of the car and the overhanging trees. It was a shady area, peaceful and quiet in the early morning light. Levine says you might try walking slowly in and see if the herd lets you through, but no quick movements, no sudden gestures.
No thanks. I'm going to try something else.
What? What did she say? She said she was going to try something else. Like what? Levine said. He went to the window and looked out. The sky was growing lighter. He frowned. There was some consequence to that, he thought. Something he knew in the back of his mind, but wasn't thinking about. Something about daylight. And territory. Territory. Levine looked out at the sky again, trying to put it together. What difference did it make that daylight was coming? He shook his head, gave it up for a moment. How long to reset the breakers? Just a minute or two, Thorne said. Then there might still be time, Levine said.
Okay, I'm above the car.
You're where?
I'm above the car, in a tree.
Harding climbed out on the branch, moving farther from the trunk, feeling it bend under her weight. The branch seemed supple. She was now 10 feet above the car, swinging lower. Few of the animals below had looked up at her, but the herd seems to be restless. Animals sitting in the mud got up and began to turn and mile. She saw their tails flicking back and forth anxiously. She moved farther out, and the branch bent lower. It was slippery from the night's rain. She tried to adjust her position above the car. It looked pretty good, she thought. Sarah? What's she doing now? Levine began to pace nervously. I wish we could see what she's doing. In the corner of the room, Kelly got up, rubbing her eyes.
Why don't you use the video?
What video? Kelly pointed to the cash register.
That's a computer.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Kelly yawned as she sat in the chair facing the cash register. It looked like a dumb terminal, which meant it probably didn't have access to much, but it was worth a try anyway. She turned it on. Nothing happened. She flicked the power switch back and forth. Nothing. Idly, she swung her legs and kicked a wire beneath the table. She bent over and saw that the terminal was unplugged, so she plugged it in. To proceed further, she knew she needed a password. Arby had a password. She glanced over and saw that he was still asleep. She didn't want to wake him up. She remembered that he had written it down on a piece of paper and stuck it in his pocket. Maybe it was still in his clothes, she thought. She crossed the room, found a bundle of his wet, muddy clothes, and began going through the pockets. She found his wallet, the keys to his house, and some other stuff. Finally, she found the piece of paper in his back pocket. It was damp and streaked with mud. The ink was smeared, but she could still read his writing. He was in the system, but the whole thing looked different. Maybe because this wasn't the radio net, she thought. She must be logged into the actual laboratory system. It had more graphics because the terminal was hardwired. Maybe they even ran optical pipes out here. Kelly, how about it?
I'm working on it.
Cautiously, she began to type. Rows of icons appeared rapidly across the screen, one after another. She knew she was looking at the graphic interface of some kind, but the meaning of the images wasn't obvious to her, and there was no explanations. The people who had used this system were probably trained to know what these images meant, but Kelly didn't know. She wanted to get into the video system, yet none of the pictures suggest anything to do with video. She moved the cursor around, wondering what to do. She decided she'd have to guess. She picked a diamond-shaped icon on the lower left and clicked it on.
Uh-oh.
Levine looked over. Something wrong?
No, it's fine.
She quickly clicked on the header and got back to the previous screen. This time, she tried one of the triangular-shaped icons. That's it, she thought. Immediately, the image popped off, and the actual video images began to flash up on the screen. On this little cash register monitor, the pictures were tiny, but now she was in familiar territory, and she moved around quickly, moving the cursor, manipulating the images.
What are you looking for?
The Explorer, Thorne said.
Got it.
You do? He sounded surprised.
Yeah, I do.
The two men came and stared at the screen over her shoulder. They could see the Explorer, on the side, on the shade road. They could see the Pachycephalosaurs, lots of them, milling around the car. The animals were poking at the tires and the front fender, but they didn't see Sarah anywhere. Where is she? Thorne said. Sarah Harding was underneath the car, lying on her face in the mud. She had crawled there after she fell. It was the only place to go, and now she was staring out at the animals, feet milling all around her.
Doc? Are you there? Doc?
But the damned radio wasn't working again. The Packies were stamping and snorting, trying to get her under the car. Then she remembered that Thorne had said something about screwing down the battery pack. She reached behind her back and twisted the cover shut tight. Immediately, her earpiece began to crack with static.
Doc,
Where are you?
I'm under the car.
Why? You already tried?
Try what?
Try to start it. To start the car.
No, I didn't try to start it. I fell.
Well, as long as you're under there, you can check the breakers.
The breakers are under the car?
Some of them. Look up by the front wheel.
Okay, I'm looking.
There's a box right behind the front bumper. Over on the left.
I see it.
Can you open it?
I think so. I see 3 switches and they're all pointing up.
Up?
Toward the front of the car.
That doesn't make sense. Can you read the writing?
Yes, it says 15VV and O2R.
Okay, that explains it.
What?
The box is in backwards. Flip all the switches the other way. Are you dry?
No, Doc, I'm soaking wet, lying in the damn mud.
Well then, use your shirt sleeve or something.
They have very bad breath.
Say again?
Never mind. Okay, I did it. The car is making a noise.
That's fine.
What do I do now?
Nothing. You better wait.
How much time left?
About 10 minutes.
Well, I'm stuck under here, Doc.
I know. She looked at the animals. They were on all sides of the car. If anything, they seemed to be growling more active and excited. They stamped their feet and snuffled impatiently. Why were they so worked up? She wondered.
Doc?
Yeah,
Why'd they leave?
stay under the car.
Doc?
Don't talk. She waited, not sure what was happening. She heard the tension on Thorne's voice. She didn't know why, but now she heard a soft scuffling sound, and looking over, she saw 2 feet standing by the driver's side of the car. 2 feet in muddy boots. Men's boots. Harding frowned. She recognized the boots. She recognized the khaki trousers, even though they were now caked with mud. It was Dodgson. The man's boot turned to face the door. She heard the door latch click. Dodgson was getting in the car. Harding acted so swiftly she was not aware of thinking. Grunting, she swung her body around sideways, reached out with her arms, grabbed both ankles, and pulled hard. Dodgson fell, giving a yell of surprise. He landed on his back and turned, his face dark and angry. No shit! I thought I finished you off on the boat! Harding went red with rage and started to crawl out from under the car. Dodgson scrambled to his knees as she was halfway out, but then she felt the ground begin to shake. And she immediately knew why. She saw Dodgson look over his shoulder and flatten himself on the ground. Hurriedly, he started to crawl under the car beside her. She turned in the mud, looking down along the length of the car, and she saw the Tyrannosaurus coming up through the road towards them, the ground vibrating with each step. Now Dodgson was crawling towards the center of the car, pushing himself close to her, but she ignored him. She looked at Dodgson. His eyes were wide with terror. The Tyrannosaur paused beside the car. The big feet shifted. It could smell them. Beside her, Dodgson was trembling uncontrollably, but Harding was strangely calm. She knew what she had to do. Quickly, she shifted her body, twisted around, moving so her head and shoulders were braced against the rear wheel of the car. Dodgson turned to look at her just as her boots began to push against his lower legs, pushing him out from beneath the car. Terrified, Dodgson struggled, trying to push back, but her position was much stronger. Inch by inch, his boots moved out into the cold morning light, then his canvas. She grunted as she pushed, concentrating every ounce of her energy. What the hell are you doing? Stop it! Are you crazy? Stop it! But Harding didn't stop. She got her boot on his shoulder and pushed once more. For a while, Dodgson struggled against her. Then suddenly his body moved easily, and she saw that the Tyrannosaur had his legs in his jaws and was pulling Dodgson out from underneath the car. Dodgson wrapped his arm around her boot, trying to hold on, trying to drag her with him. She saw his terrified face, ashen, mouth open. No words came out. She saw his fingers digging into the mud, leaving deep gushes as he was pulled away. And then his body was dragged out. She saw Dodgson spin around onto his back and look upward. She saw the shadow of the Tyrannosaur fall across him. She saw the big head came down, the jaws wide, and she heard Dodgson began to scream as the jaws closed around his body, and he was lifted up. Dodgson felt himself rise high into the air, 20 feet above the ground, and all the time he continued to scream. He knew at any moment the animal would snap his great jaws shut, and he would die. But the jaws never closed. Dodgson felt stabbing pain in his sides, but the jaws never closed. Still screaming, Dodgson felt himself carried back into the jungle. High branches of trees slashed his face. The hot breath of the animal whooshed and snorts over his body. Saliva dripped into his torso. He thought he would pass out from terror, but the jaws never closed. Inside the store, they stared at the tiny monitor as Dodgson was carried away in the jaws of the Tyrannosaur. Over the radio, they heard his tiny distant screams. "You see," Malcolm said, "there is a God." Levine was frowning. "The Rex didn't kill him." He pointed to the screen. "Look, there, you can see his arms are still moving. Why didn't it kill him?" Sarah Harding waited until the screams faded. She crawled out from beneath the car, standing up in the morning light. There was a chuggy sound, and then a soft whine. All the dashboard lights came on, then silence. Was the car working? She turned the wheel, and it moved easily, so the power steering was on.
Doc,
Yes, Sarah.
the car's working. I'm coming back.
Okay, hurry. She put it in drive and felt the transmission engage. The car was uneasily quiet, almost silent, which was why she was able to hear the faint thumping of a distant helicopter. Sarah was driving at thick, canopied trees, back towards the village. She heard the sound of the helicopter build intensely, then it roared overhead, unseen through the foliage above. She had the window down and was listening. It seems to move off to her right, towards the south. Sarah,
Yes, Doc.
listen, we can't communicate with the helicopter.
Okay. Where's the landing site?
South, about a mile. There's a clearing. Take the ridge road.
Okay, I'm going.
Tell them to wait for us. Then come back and get us.
Everything okay?
Everybody's fine. She followed the road, hearing the change in the sound of the helicopter. She realized it must be landing. The rotors continued, a low whir, which meant the pilot wasn't going to shut down. The road curved off to the left. The sound of the helicopter was now a muted thumping. She accelerated, driving fast, carrying around the corner. The road was still wet from the rain of the night before. It wasn't rising a cloud of dust behind her. There was nothing to tell anyone that she was here.
Doc, how long will they wait?
I don't know. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Levine stared out the window. He looked at the brightening sky through the trees. The streak of red were gone. It was now bright even blue. Daylight was definitely coming. Daylight. And then he put it together. He shivered as he realized. He went to the window on the opposite side, looked out towards the tennis court. He stared at the spot where the Torres had been the night before. They were gone now, just as he feared. This is bad. It's only just now 8, Thorne said, glancing at his watch. How long will it take her? Levine said. I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. And then to get back? Another 5 minutes. I hope we make it that long. He was frowning unhappily. Why? We're okay. In a few minutes, we'll have direct sun shining down outside. So what? Thorne said. Sarah came around a final curve and saw the landing site off to her left. The helicopter was there, blades spinning. She saw another junction in the road, with a road leading left down the hill, into the jungle, and then out into the clearing. She drove down it, descending a series of switchbacks, forcing her to go slow. She was now back in the jungle, beneath the canopies of trees. The ground leveled out. She splashed across the narrow stream and accelerated forward. Directly ahead, there was a gap in the tree's canopy, and sunlight on the clearing beyond. She saw the helicopter. Its rotors were beginning to spin faster. It was leaving. She saw the pilot behind the bubble, wearing dark glasses. The pilot checked his watch, shook his head to his co-pilot, and then began to lift off. What is it? Sarah, what's happening?
Wait! Wait!
Let's stay calm, Levine said, pacing the little store. Tell her to get back right away. Let's stay calm. He seems to be talking to himself. He walked from one wall to the next, pounding the wooden planks with his fists. He shook his head unhappily. Just tell her to hurry. You think she can be back in 5 minutes? Yes. Why? What is it, Richard? Levine pointed out the window. Daylight. We're trapped here in daylight. We were trapped here all night, too. We made it okay. But daylight is different. Why? Because at night, this is the Carnotaurus territory. Other animals don't come in. We saw no animals all around here last night. But once daylight comes, the Carnotaurs can't hide anymore. Not in open spaces, in direct sunlight. So they'll leave. And then this wouldn't be their territory anymore. Which means... Levine glanced at Kelly over by the computer. Just take my word for it. We have to get out of here right away. And go where? I prefer to get off this island, but I don't see how we can. So I suppose we should make our way back to the trailer. It's the safest place now. Back to the trailer, she thought. Where she and Sarah had gone to get Malcolm. Kelly didn't want to go back to the trailer. She wanted to go home. Tensely, Kelly smoothed out the piece of damp paper, pressing it flat onto the table beside her. Dr. Levine came over. Stop fooling around. See if you can find Sarah.
I want to go home.
I know, Kelly. We all want to go home. And he walked away again, moving quickly, tensely. Kelly pushed the paper away, turning it over, and slid it under the keyboard, in case she needed the password again. As she did so, her eyes were caught by some writing on the other side. You're kidding, she thought.
Dr. Thorne? I think you better look at this.
Thorne stared as she pointed at the list. You think so?
That's what it says. A boathouse.
Can you find it, Kelly?
You mean, find it on the video? I can try.
Try, Thorne said. He glanced at Levine, who was across the room, pounding on the walls again. Sarah? It's Doc.
Doc? I've had to stop for a minute.
Why? Sarah Harding was stopped at the ridge road. 50 yards ahead, she saw the Tyrannosaur going down the road away from her. She could see that he has Dodgson in his mouth, and somehow Dodgson was still alive. His body was still moving. She thought she could hear him screaming. She was surprised to find that she had no feelings about him at all. She watched dispassionately as the Tyrannosaur left the road and headed off down the slump, back into the jungle. At the computer console, Kelly flicked through video images, one after another, until finally she found it. A wooded dock, enclosed inside a shed or a boathouse, open to the air at the far end. The interior of the boathouse looks in pretty good shape. There weren't a lot of vines and ferns growing over things. She saw the powerboat tied up, rocking against the dock. She saw 3 oil drums to one side, and out the back of the boathouse there was an open water and sunlight. It looked like a river.
What do you think?
I think it's worth a try, he said, looking over her shoulder. But where is it? Can you find a map?
Maybe.
She flicked the keys and managed to get back to the main screen with its perplexing icons. Nice graphics. You log on, huh?
Yeah, I did, but I'm having a little trouble figuring it out.
Levine was pacing, staring out the windows. This is all well and good, but it is getting brighter out there by the minute. Don't you understand? We need a way out of here. This building is a single wall construction. It's fine for tropics, but it's basically a shack. It'll do, Thorne said. For 3 minutes, maybe. I mean, look at this. This door is just... Help me! I told you! Find a way out of here! Come on, Kel. Concentrate. Don't worry, there must be a key to explain it. We just need to know what... What did you do?
I don't know.
It's worse. You made it worse. Come on, kids.
We're trying.
It's becoming a cube. Where are the guns? Sarah has 3 in her car. Great. We
We have to get out of here! We have to find a way! They're back there too! Come on, Kel. You can do it! Concentrate! Come on! Everyone in the room was shouting. Kelly stared at the cube on the screen, feeling hopeless and lost. She didn't know what she was doing anymore. She didn't know why she was there. She didn't know what the point of everything was. Why wasn't Sarah here? Come on! Do the icons one at a time, Kel. You can do it! Come on! Stay with it! Focus! But she couldn't focus. She couldn't click on the icons. They were rotating too fast on the screen. There must be a parallel processor to handle all of the graphics. She just stared at it. She found herself thinking of all sorts of things. Thoughts that just came unbidden into her mind. The cord under the desk, hard wires, lots of graphics. Sarah talking in the trailer. Come on, Kel. You have to do this now. Find a way out.
Most of what people tell you will be wrong.
It's important, Kel. He was trembling as he stood beside her. She knew he concentrated on computers as a way of block things out, as a way to... It's important!
No, it's not important.
What are you doing? But already Kelly had her answer. She saw the cable from the computer going down into the floor, through a neat hole. She saw a seam in the wood. Her fingers scrambled at the floor, pulling at it. And suddenly, the panel came away in her hands. She looked down. Darkness.
Here!
Kelly was in the lead, holding a flashlight. They moved, single file along the damp concrete walls. They were in a tunnel 4 feet square, with flat metal rags of cables along the left side. Water and gas pipe ran near the ceiling. The tunnel smelled moldy. They came to a wide junction. She looked both ways. To the right was a long, straight passageway going into darkness. It probably led to the laboratory, she thought. To the left was a much shorter section of tunnel, with stairs at the end. She went left. She crawled up through a narrow concrete shaft and pushed open the wooden trap door at the top. She found herself in a small utility building, surrounded by cables and rusted pipes. Sunlight streamed through the broken windows. The others climbed up beside her. Harding drove the Explorer along the edge of the river. Kelly was sitting beside her in the front seat. They saw a wooden sign for the boathouse up ahead.
So it was the graphics that gave you the clue, Kelly? I just suddenly realized it didn't matter what was actually on the screen. What mattered was there was a lot of data being manipulated. Millions of pixels spinning there, and that meant there had to be a cable. And if there was a cable, there must be a space for it. And enough space that workmen can repair it. All of that. So you looked under the desk? Yes. That's very good. I think these people owe you their lives. Not really. All your life, other people will try to take your accomplishments away from you. Don't you take it away from yourself.
The road was muddy alongside the river and heavily overgrown with plants. They heard the distant cries of the dinosaurs somewhere behind them. Harding maneuvered around a fallen tree, and then they saw the boathouse ahead. Uh-oh, Levine said. I have a bad feeling. From the outside, the building was in ruins and heavily overgrown with vines. The roof had caved in several places. No one spoke as Harding pulled the Explorer up in front of a pair of broad double doors sealed with rusted padlocks. They climbed out of the car and walked forward in ankle-deep mud. You really think there's a boat in there? Arby said doubtfully. Malcolm leaned on to Sarah, while Thorne threw his weight against the door. Rotten timbers cracked. then splintered. The padlock fell to the ground.
Here, hold him.
What do you see? Levine said, pulling planks away to widen the hole. A furry spider scurried up the broads, jumping away.
There's a boat here, all right? And it looks okay.
Levine pushed his head through the hole. I'll be damned. We just might get out of here after all. Louis Dodgson fell. Tumbling through the air, he dropped from the mouth of the Tyrannosaur and landed hard on an earthly slump. The breath was knocked out of him. His head slammed down, and he was dizzy for a moment. He opened his eyes and saw the slumpy bank of dry mud. He smelled the soil odor of decay, and then he heard a sound that chilled him. He got up on one elbow and saw he was in a Tyrannosaur nest. The slumpy mound of dry mud was all around him. Now there were 3 infants here, including one with a piece of aluminum wrap around its leg. The infants were squeaking with excitement as they toddled towards him. Dodgson scrambled to his feet, unsure what to do. The other adult Tyrannosaur was on the far side of the nest, purring and snorting. The one had brought him here was standing over him. Dodgson watched the babies moving towards him, with their downy necks and their sharp little jaws. And then he turned to run. In an instinct, the big adult brought his head down, knocking Dodgson over. Then the Tyrannosaur raised his head again and waited, watching. What the hell is going on? Dodgson thought. Cautiously, he got to his feet again, and again he was knocked down. The infants squeaked and came closer. He saw that their bodies were covered in bits of flesh and excrement. He could smell them. He got up on all fours and began to crawl away. Something grabbed his leg, holding him. He looked back and saw that his leg was in the jaws of the Tyrannosaur. The big animal held it gently for a moment. Then it bit down decisively. The bones snapped and crushed. Dodgson screamed in pain. He could no longer move. He could no longer do anything but scream. The babies toddled forward eagerly. For a few seconds they kept their distance, heads darting forward to take a quick bite. But then, when Dodgson did not move anyway, one hopped on his leg and began to bite at the bleeding flesh. The second jumped on his crotch and pecked with razor-sharp jaws at his waist. The third came right alongside his face, and with a single snap bit into his cheek, Dodgson howled. He saw the baby eating the flesh of his own face. His blood was dripping down his jaws. The baby threw his head back and swallowed the cheek, and then turned, opened his jaws again, and closed over Dodgson's neck.